Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective.
Welcome to Behavioral Health Today. I'm your host, Dr. Graham Taylor. It's great to have you with us. Today, I'm joined by Duncan Rich and Owen Marcus from MELD, a men's wellness organization focused on supporting emotional resiliency and mental health. Owen has 40 years of experience working with men's groups and creating somatic programs for men, including his role at MELD, where he developed programs that help men build emotional intelligence, celebrate their strengths, and live fully. He's also the author of Grow Up, A Man's Guide to Masculine Emotional Intelligence. Duncan is a co-founder and the head of operations at MELD and has a rich background in experiential event production. He's worked globally to create meaningful experiences from retreats to large-scale festivals, always focusing on the how, the mechanisms that make transformative experiences possible for folks. Together, Duncan and Owen have led a global movement helping men strengthen their emotional skill sets and foster deeper connections with themselves and others. We're excited to have Duncan and Owen with us today to discuss how MELD's somatic-based approach is empowering men to build emotional resilience, overcome societal pressures, and forge deeper connections with themselves, while addressing the challenges men face, the importance of vulnerability, and the transformative impact of community and group work in the healing process. Duncan, Owen, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
It's an honor to be here.
It's nice to have you. As we start out today, you both found MELD to help men with mental and emotional wellness. What were you guys seeing in the culture and in the lives of men that inspired you to create MELD together?
So men are struggling. We are looking around for ways to make sense out of what we're experiencing. Even successful men are feeling unfulfilled and dissatisfied with their lives and relationships. And there's a taboo or there's a stigma around even talking about this in some circles. But I think your audience would agree that if you look at the metrics and statistics for, suicide and schooling and participation in the workforce, all the trends for men are headed in the wrong direction. Men are more likely to commit suicide than women. They're far less likely to receive higher degrees. They don't perform as well in school. And more men are earning less and less and dropping out of the workforce. The data is even more sort of drastic for Black men. From a sort of macro cultural standpoint, these things, make men less marriageable, as Richard
Yes.
Reeves puts it.
Yeah.
And more men are sort of struggling to find their place. And there's this kind of loss of identity in a world that's evolving really quickly, especially over the last 50 years. Men are essentially being left behind. We're not evolving at the same pace. And there's not a lot of sympathy for that, especially in certain circles. And it doesn't help that a lot of what men, especially younger men, are sort of reaching for in order to find meaning aren't necessarily the most productive resources. But there's the narrative today that sort of men are the problem, but men are not the problem. The model is the problem. The model we've been raised in is the problem. And it's really time for something new. There's this belief that, being strong means to stand alone and to be vulnerable is weakness. And it's crap. And it needs to be discarded. It actually sort of that isolationist tendency is one of the things that sort of keeps and perpetuates this model. It keeps men from moving forward, keeps men from seeking help. So we created MELD to change that and to give men the skills and tools that, that we're born with. So we're sort of reawakening these skills and these tools to succeed and to bring more of themselves online, to shift the paradigm and really bring a new model of what it means to be a man.
What a great way to come out of the gate, Duncan. My goodness, what a great way to come out of the gate here. You're talking about it's not men that are the problem, because we're not. And though there is a higher degree of isolation and disenfranchisement, marginalization of men, men want to make sense of things. Men want to contribute. That's how we're wired. That's part of our DNA. We want to make sense of these things, and we struggle to contribute in ways that we so desire to. We want to have meaningful interactions. We want to have impact. We want to be generative in the things that we're doing. But man, is it a struggle for all the reasons you're talking about here. And it's not us trying, it's about a model that has left us behind. It's resulted in all the things we're talking about, suicide rates being higher, degrees being lower, and earnings going down. And there's, instead of understanding, there's typically blame and a lack of sympathy. And what you're saying here is we need a new model. That's all we need here. And that's where you guys are coming into play. Owen, as you're listening to Duncan get us out of the gate here, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, we need a model, and part of it, part of this new model that we've sort of created and I've sort of stumbled into over the decades is a model really based on a physiology, or really what we call emotional physiology, or somaware, which is really, as you know, Graham, when we have an experience, first we have a physical experience, then we have an emotional experience, and then we maybe experience or frame it in an intellectual way. But we've been trained in the opposite, that things happen top down, cognitively. If we can understand something, we can control it and change it. And that's somewhat true. But what we're finding with men is that they're really trying, like you said, and Duncan said, we are trying to succeed. But the problem is the model and how the model is executed. So we flip it and we say, guys, look, it's really you're not bad, you're not broken. It's a physiological thing. So you have an experience, you have a stress experience. And when we have stress, our body sort of takes over, and often we go into the fight, flight, or freeze stage. And so when we understand that right there, men start to take away some of the shame, and they start to relax and go, okay, you mean that I'm not really screwed up? And we go, yeah, you're not screwed up. And we teach a little bit of that science, but really how to access that science in the body. So what was a stress response actually becomes a connection response. And when you can use your physiology to shift that, the changes can be immediate and profound. And then the other component of our work that we've discovered over the decades is what we call the communal effect, or the peer-to-peer groups. And so what happens is when you put men, and you sort of inferred this, Graham, in a safe or emotionally safe place, we open up, and you create some simple rules like confidentiality and maybe a little training or suggestion. These guys will open up. And once one guy opens up, they all start to open up, because once, you open up and you show every man in that group or the training that it's safe to be vulnerable, to be authentic, and you don't get shamed as you might out there in the real world, but you're actually honored, which is what we want to do as men. You shift, you go, wow. And every guy in the room shifts and go, this is a different playing field, different rules of engagement. And this game is a game I want to play. And so literally through interacting with each other, we rewire our nervous system, and we learn attachment. All that attachment theory we start to embody, because we were able to connect to ourselves first in this authentic or vulnerable way, into others, and we have this safe place to practice it.
Well, that's really good. There's a lot there to unpack. I'd like to maybe just start just a wee bit around this idea that in your groups, you've got two primarily that you walk men through. It's your core group and also your Forge group coaching. And there's some really significant and very unique components of your program. It's got the attachment piece to it, wonderful research around attachment. There's the polyvagal theory. You're talking about the physiological aspects of what you guys do. There's a peer-to-peer component to it. And I can so speak from my own experience. I do more individual work, but I know in group work too, I've done that, a little bit of that as well with some men. Right away, they begin to say that this is something that I think I can lean into more. And they have a longing for it, to do it. And when you make it safe, when you begin to put some meaning to these things for guys, when you kind of depathologize these issues and problems we're going through, men begin to say, hey, you mean that I'm not the problem? Because like Duncan was saying at the beginning, we are told that we are the problem. And when we find out that we're not, that these are actually some explanations for these things, we can work ourselves back out of this. And one of the ways that you help men start, you said, was talking about and educating them around the physiological aspects of this, the somatic work. I would love to hear an expansion of that just a little bit, because that leads into an emotional awareness from there. But it's managing that physiological side first, that somatic side first. Expand upon that for us, would you?
Yeah, it started pretty much 50 years ago when I just was in the right place at the right time back in Boulder, Colorado, studying with people like Peter Levine, Ron Kurtz, all the people that started somatic psychotherapy.
Yes.
It was intriguing. It really changed me, but I never thought I'd go down this path. And then 30 years ago, I started working with men because I needed it, because I was a real uptight guy and my relationships weren't working. And I saw that I was the consistent variable. And and so I started applying all the things I'd sort of learned and was applying in my private practice clinically towards men, and really first to these free peer-to-peer groups we were doing. And I realized later that everything we were doing was a polyvagal theory.
Yes.
And essentially, we were showing men that, when we can downregulate or relax and go into that parasympathetic or relaxed state, we change our whole perspective, and then we're able to self-regulate, which is,
Yes.
start to connect to ourselves and feel our somatic experience that Porges, the man that developed polyvagal theory, would talk about, the interception of experiencing our physiology, which immediately tells us that we're safe. Because as you know, in a sympathetic or stress state, we are focused on threat. And when we're focused
Yes.
on threat, we're focused on the external world. And so even if something's not a threat, we're probably going to perceive it as a potential
Right.
threat.
Just in
So
case.
you're having a conversation with your
Yeah.
partner, your intimate partner, and she picks up that you're out of habit, training, or whatever, you're starting to experience her as a threat response. And as Porges would say, your physiology is going to portray that. Your face, your voice, all these
Right.
things unconsciously, instinctually are going to portray that I'm scared, and she's going to pick up, oh, you're a threat. And then
Right.
she's going to show that, and you're going to pick that up. And you got this spiral going on where below the surface and or quickly above the surface, you go from a state of connection or co-regulation to a state of dysregulation. And
Yes.
I work a lot with couples. My partner's a couples therapist, and we do intensives, trainings, retreats. So I get to see this with couples too. And same thing with couples. It starts with this physiology. And when we can not just understand it, but know how to use it in a way to foster connection, we start to shift our relationships.
We'll be right back after word from our sponsor.
Are you preparing for a licensure exam in psychology, social work, marriage and family therapy, counseling, or behavioral analysis? AATBS is here to help. We have been supporting behavioral and mental health students to prepare for their licensure exams for more than 45 years, working with over 1 million students to succeed on test day and move on to the next step in their career. With products ranging from comprehensive courses to quiz banks and delivered live online, self-study online, and in print, AATBS has test prep solutions that meet every student's needs and learning styles. Visit us today at aatbs.com. That's aatbs.com, and use promo code BHT15 to save 15% off your next purchase.
I think it's such a key piece, because typically when we're working with folks, we say, well, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? We go right here above the neck. And you're talking about, if we can begin to start just with, let's just make it safe. Let's just physiologically ground ourselves, turn that fight or flight out. Let's evoke the parasympathetic nervous system, paramedic. They help make things better. Let's slow everything down. And let's just make it safe from that place. Because otherwise, when we're stressed and that fight or flight's going off, we become very myopic. Everything is a threat. And we're not seeing all the other pieces that are out there that we need to consider and work through. So I love your start. Let's just get calm. Let's get grounded. Let's get safe. And let's work from that point. Duncan, what are you thinking around this start and how you guys focus this piece in? Build upon that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, in our core program, it's called core. We teach about the nervous system, and we have in these courses we have therapists, we have coaches, we have physicians, other kinds of facilitators, practitioners. We have guys off the street, laymen,
That's
who
great.
don't have a background in this sort of training. It's something of an introductory program. It's also great for men of all skill levels, and we teach about the nervous system to sort of appease the intellectual need that
Right.
men sort of have to build the trust. We teach about the range of resilience, sort of what you're talking about with the parasympathetic, sympathetic, the wave of, toggling in and out of these different sort of nervous system stress response states, and the mechanics of sort of what's happening in the body when various everyday stressful situations occur, and how to work with your body's signals and patterns to respond in a way that's aligned with who you are and who you want to be. So we teach to appease the intellect, but then we practice in groups and individually to get the embodied experience. It's one thing to
Right.
intellectually understand an issue. It's a whole other thing to feel it and to feel the awareness of it and to let the feeling dictate the understanding instead of the story.
Duncan, around that point right there, would you,
Yeah.
like, and you're saying this takes place in a group, and men need to make sense of things first, typically. And then once there's that understanding, then we can go into the experiential realm. It's almost like, you kind of build a corral and then you can be free inside that corral because you know what you're going to be doing.
That's
And
right.
that's what you're saying. It kind of, it speaks to that kind of curiosity first, and then we can go experience it. In the groups, that's what you do. Walk us through how you might begin to address some of that parasympathetic nervous system piece and recognizing that we, in fact, can control it, which is the hopeful part.
hmm Well, we do it by all of our trainings are experiential. So we do it by using your nervous system. We'll activate a response in you, a mild, sort of very safe once we've established the container. But we get activated, we encourage interaction, and we allow for things to be a little messy, a little
Yeah.
chaotic. We encourage um, taking imperfect action,
Yeah.
and these spaces that we create are sort of like the dojo for where you get to practice. You're not practicing with your partner. You're not practicing, at work, at the office, or wherever. You are in a place where it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to say the thing that you notice the activation around and you feel scared or you feel angry, and you come out with it. And if it comes out sideways, that's okay, because we can make sense out of it. And and that's allowed, and that's exactly right. And men need spaces to be able to practice this stuff because the stakes are so high, outside,
Right.
out there. And in this way, it's actually quite a great complement to traditional therapy, because it opens men up and it gives them like a practice in a safe environment with other men. And there's like the power of men learning
Yeah.
from and with other men, like, cannot be overstated. It's not
Yeah.
like you can't replace that. So, they get to experiment with expressing themselves, and we hear from therapists that they get more out of their sessions with these men because they're more open. So,
Right.
and it's great for, everyone wins, and we get to work together in the, in the field.
That's so good. So, guys, what you get to do in the group is you get to help get them mildly activated and begin to become expressive around that. But you're talking about also once they're aroused in that way, activated in that way, you want to teach them how to kind of get that parasympathetic nervous system. Again, that's kind of the system that helps us rest and digest.
Mhm.
And you want to get them to that place where they can sit in that space and recognize that there's not a threat right now. There's just some experiences that we want to help you become more acquainted with and understand within yourself and own, and then find a way into those. How do you help them rest so they can be in that state? What are you doing?
Well, I think that's a really good question because you nailed it because what I think happens to us, we have an experience that is too big for the situation. And we can
Right.
think about it in terms of trauma, but even little stress things, what I can call like micro traumas. And so we create a space, as Duncan said, that is bigger than we usually have, safer. So our experience can be bigger. And in that experience being bigger, we have people that are not threatening or shaming us, but the opposite, supporting us, encouraging us. We're reading the nonverbals that it's safe. And so we get to experience the discomfort so it cycles through.
Mhm.
And what happens in that freeze response that we're hardwired to do when we can't express or act, fight or flight, we go to the freeze and disassociation. But that energy, the tension, the trauma, the whatever you want to call it, stays in us, stays in our psyche.
Yes.
And essentially what we're doing, usually in small little increments, is one, releasing some of that and they're rewiring their nervous system that, oh, if I just become more present or more mindful, feel 1%, 2% more of this discomfort. Yes, in that first instant, I'm going to feel more pain or my stress is going to go up. If I hang in there, it will go back down to a lower
Yes.
level
Yeah.
and I survive. And so you do that a few hundred times and you've rewired your nervous system. And you go home and you start to have a conversation with your partner, and she or he starts to get upset. And I had a client yesterday that just said this to me. He said, Owen, this stuff works. My partner was getting upset, and I heard your voice. I remembered my body, and I just took a deep breath. I relaxed. I remember, our discussion about it's not about me. And I shifted. And when I shifted, she shifted.
Yes. Yeah. I like that idea. Sometimes we just it's almost a little bit of a paradox where you're saying, don't just do something, sit there. And usually it's the other way around for us guys. Just don't sit there, do something.
Mhm.
And what you're telling guys to do is let's sit there and let's learn how to sit there, but let's learn how to sit there safely. And part of the safety piece is how to turn this what can be at its very best a very protective system, but when there's not a real threat, because our brains can't oftentimes tell the difference between a real threat and a perceived threat. And if we can turn that fight or flight off, we can assess, is this really a threat or not? And then when you're saying most times it's not, we can come into that moment differently. We can sit there and we can decide what's going to be the best response, if there's going to be any response at all. And we can have a very different presence, can't we?
We can. And I think you nailed something else. It's as guys, we like to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're learning to be, as Duncan said, but we like to do things. We're about performance. So we're sort of saying to the guys, all right, your new do is just to be present.
Right.
Yeah. And a,
That's your,
a lot of times, and a lot of men, a lot of what we're doing is actually in some ways an act of avoidance. So where,
yes.
a lot of our work is about slowing down, and we slow down and you get to be with the discomfort that you're avoiding, that you've been avoiding. And a lot of times, we definitely get into some bigger things, and we can get into some, belief systems and really old inherited traumas and stresses. But also oftentimes there's some very low hanging fruit there, where
Yes.
if you slow down, you just acknowledge what's present, and it shifts. It starts shifting as soon as you put your awareness on them. And that's the first, maybe that's the step 1 and 2 of all of the process, is slowing down, getting honest and getting
Yes.
present, and realizing that you can do it, that you can handle it, that
Sit right there.
you're not going to die. You're not
Yes.
going to, go to jail, or, there aren't these consequences that, we learned that there were sort of in some original maybe incident a long time ago, maybe pre-verbal, maybe early childhood, or maybe after that. But, we sort of relearned that it's okay. And yes, there is discomfort. And then we can get into what's behind that.
Yeah, I think, Duncan, that's a huge piece right there. I don't think men get a chance, and speaking generalities, but men get a chance to actually try this on and sit there. It's too scary for us. I think one of men's greatest fears is the shame around being incompetent.
Mm.
being seen as incompetent. In other words, in this kind of a case, I don't know what to do with these feelings. No one's ever taught me. I don't have the emotional muscle to lift this weight right now, this emotion, and I'm afraid that it's going to come out sideways, or I'm going to be seen as incompetent. Something bad is going to happen, hence the fight or flight. And what you're saying is, if we can just slow it down first, and with the group support, some exercises, some exploration, and probably some gentle nudging, they get to see that, wait a minute, this is just a feeling, isn't it? And I can actually hold this. And if I can't hold it, you're going to spot me in it for a little while until I can hold it myself. And that process is huge, because then men begin to recognize that I'm more competent than I thought I was. I just never had a chance to practice it, or nor an arena with other guys who are committed to me to do it with. I love this, Duncan, how you're putting this out there. And Owen, same thing.
Yeah,
It's
we
that
did a big study a few years ago, and the big takeaway was men came to us, and I think this is true of all guys, and it's certainly true of me, that I am not good enough. I am not good
Yes.
enough. And which
Yeah.
is sort of what you're saying, gets into the shame thing. And then one of the things that we saw, and particularly when we started doing stuff with COVID and online, when guys were coming in from all over the world, and just hearing another guy tell his story,
Yeah.
he goes, I'm not alone. And if I'm not the only one, maybe I could be good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's right. When you go back to the idea that I'm not good enough, you're also talking about that can be embedded in one's earlier, well, let's say it this way. It is embedded in one's earlier experience. If we were to did do a quick swipe and say, hey, we're the sum total of all of our past experiences, we would say that I'm bringing all of that into my group with you. And as I sit in front of you, maybe I do have some traumas. Maybe I have some things that I'm really ashamed of, some things that were really hurtful to me, or maybe on a more milder scale, maybe just I never got the attention that I needed. Maybe I was just kind of neglected. I was loved, but I never got the attention I needed. So there's a full range of things here that can men be experiencing, from just a neglect or not the attention necessary to other types of traumas that I'm sure you guys hear. So men are going to be bringing these with them, and like you said, that affects our esteem, our identity, our sense of self, our sense of I'm not good enough, I'm not going to be enough. How do you guys bring in, and what do you watch happen when they're able to allow the emergence of maybe some of their past traumas or significant relational experiences early on that are part of having to be healed so that transformation can take place? How does that happen in your groups?
You want to?
Go ahead.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I think emergence is a great word. I love that word. There's sort of a collective thing that happens. We got the physiology happening. We got the safe place. We got as you sort of inferred, we got the guys start to feel that, everyone has their back. And it's like, I think we, in one way, plug into an ancestral, instinctual quality as men. So we need a tribe.
Yes.
We go back to the Aboriginal people that we were, and the women, simplifying, the women were the gatherers, we were the hunters. So we go out on the tribe, and we'd have time just to be with men, and the hunting party. And in this culture, we don't get to do that. We may be at work or whatever, but where a guy say, after they left school or maybe the military, yeah, I sort of have friends, but I don't really have friends. I don't have the friends I used to have, the ones I could confide in, the ones that, I could call at 2 a.m. and they'd be there. And, in this group that I started in Sandpoint, Idaho, a town of 8,000, we're celebrating 20-year anniversary. We've had over 500 guys in this one group, and we currently have over 60 guys in the group. And I'm in one of the groups, which is a Zoom group for some of the expats. And we were just talking the other night. We had a big group meeting, and the Zoom group came in virtually about all of this, how over the course of 20 years, we've created from one little group, a whole community of groups and a community within a community where guys are lining up. We don't market this, and it's a free thing, because they want this. They want to be part of a community. They want to be supported. And what often they don't realize until they do it is they want to give support. Because we got guys that have been in this group 20 years that don't need it for any of the reasons they joined, but they're in it because they have the community. They get to contribute every week. They show up and they realize just being who I am is a contribution for you.
Yes.
And where else in most guys' life do they have this opportunity just to be present and have that make a difference in someone's life?
What a lovely thing. I've worked through the things that I came into the group for, and now I'm at a place where I want to give forward. I want to be there for the guys. Duncan, speak to that a little bit. I see you kind of nodding your head in this
Yeah,
process too. What a beautiful
absolutely.
thing.
So being able to be of service and contributing speaks to the provider role that we take on, as does the I'm not good enough, or I have to hold this all together all by myself. This all comes from the you could call it sort of the shadow side of the
Yep.
provider role, is like I need to be strong, like I need to be the strength, I need to be the roof over everyone's head, whatever it is. And sort of expanding the definition of what the provider is able to provide, or what the provider means. In when men feel better, they do better. And
Yes.
when they do better, they their families start to do better, and
Yes.
their communities start to do better. And it's really, the gift of it is just sort of awakening these parts of yourself. It's
Yeah.
a gift that you get to give yourself. um
Mhm.
and and then you automatically sort of well, get drawn to these acts of service, and to this wanting to contribute, and you see the
Right.
change that it makes. And I mean, if enough men start like awakening these parts of themselves, like imagine the world that we're looking at. With
Oh my.
it's a very different world. And with individuals living in authenticity and with their purpose, and breaking these cycles of inherited stress and trauma. And that includes like less pressure on women, and men embracing their own complexity.
Yes.
We try to simplify things, and we try to just, this like me good, kind of very like narrow and easy. And
Yeah.
like we're complex, and
Yeah.
the world is complex, and we contain a multitude of things that can all be contained in this sort of provider role. So yeah, and I mean, we're essentially building a movement that could really greatly impact the shape of history and culture here. Like
There is no more important movement right now, I believe. No more. Men have lost their way, and it's not their fault. The model's been changed on them for a number of reasons, some not so great reasons. But what I love, I want to emphasize this piece because I think it's positive here. You talking about showing up for each other. That's a gift we give to one another, which then allows us to give a gift to ourselves of opening up and discovering all that is there, all that's there. And I'm a strong believer in when you provide that kind of holding, that kind of encouragement, that kind of accountability, that kind of nudging and iron sharpens iron idea, there's very few things we can't work through. I'm a strong believer in the sense that we're going to find a way or make a way, and we can just stay with it. And that's the gift you're saying that
yeah,
men give to each other when they show up in these ways, and the gift that we get to give to ourselves. And then that gift ripples out, like you just said, to our families, our communities, and I think in a larger way to our world. What a wonderful way to phrase that.
Yeah,
yeah,
we in this big group meeting we did, and I was on virtually, and there was probably a good 50 guys in this one big room. And every time we do this, it's once or twice a year, we pick a guy in this community that we honor. And we picked a
Nice.
guy that, a few years ago he was struggling. We pushed him, but with love, we pushed him. He said, "You got to
Exactly.
show up. You got to show up." And this guy pulled up his pants and he showed up, and not only for himself, but his wife and his kids, but now the group.
Nice.
I mean, it transformed this man's life, and part of it was what you're saying was once he sort of shifted, and it was more about serving the men in the group, he started to really change. And it wasn't, he was doing it because he wanted to do it, and he got
Yeah.
positive reinforcement. And so this man is standing in a room of 50 guys, and we're honoring him, and he's sobbing because he really he really felt seen for all the hard work he was doing for all these years, not only his personal work, but his, contribution to this bigger community.
I totally agree. And what that emphasizes to me as well is your group is so safe. And I can say, I love you enough that I'm going to nudge you in right directions and I'm not going to let up because I care about you too much to let you stay in the state that you're in. And I'm not willing to do that. I love that piece. As we're kind of winding the corner here, and I think we could probably go on for quite a bit more together because it's such a great kind of conversation and a much needed topic to be generalized out more and more. Uh, but as you guys look ahead for MELD, what do you see some of the trends being, not just in mental health, but some things that you might see being instrumental in the future that you guys are going to be providing services around? And I'm thinking, just to cue it a little bit, what about young boys, young men, fathers, sons? You guys think about any trends for MELD in the future here?
I was just talking to a gentleman yesterday who wants to start a nonprofit for boys in college because he has a friend that his son was in college and was pledging a fraternity and died
Mm,
during the pledging process. And fortunately, they were able to revive him. And 6 of the guys in that pledge class ended up going to ER. And it's like, we got to, he said, we got to change that model because that's like the extreme of the old model. And so one of the things we talked about is guys, young men at that age, they need this community, but they don't need it in that way.
yeah,
And they need some challenge, but it doesn't have to be life-threatening challenge. And so it's like, how can we create, you know, challenge like we do in MELD, that challenges men, but in a much safer way that really evokes out the maturity that's in all of us and the connection that we need with all of us. And how can we create these containers that we're creating community in all levels, from a small group to
yes,
to a bigger organization, from one little town to really internationally, because I
very
think
good.
creating these communities goes directly to solving the loneliness problem that is epidemic throughout this culture. Yes, more with men, but women are suffering as all these institutions sort of dissolve away and we don't have any ways to really connect, because I think we're realizing, social media and virtual connection and the way that we usually do it is pretty light. And so
Yeah,
we're really hungry. And so, one of the things that we really are advocating is, let's create these authentic communities that people run themselves. They don't need someone up top telling them
right.
what to do. We'll give you the tools and you build what you want with these tools.
Yeah, outstanding.
Yeah.
Hey, Duncan, as we kind of round the corner here, I'd love you to give us a kind of a takeaway message for the men listening today, if you would, that may be considering starting their own journey around their own healing and transformation. Give us a takeaway message of hope here.
Oh, absolutely. I would say that, a motivated and resilient man creates a better world.
Huh.
And you can be that change in your own life, and you will automatically be servicing everyone around you, and you will automatically be improving the lives of the people closest to you, and then the ripple effect just kind of goes out from there.
Man, I can't think of another better takeaway message here. You guys got us out of the gate and you're bringing us home right here with some really good stuff. And I appreciate that. For our listeners that want to follow up with you guys, with MELD, be a part of this. I mentioned as we started the show today, before we went on air, that I refer people to you folks. I just referred somebody last night, as a matter of fact, as I was preparing for this. I gave them a quick text message. Hey, you guys got to follow up with us and check these folks out. For those that want to follow up after our show today, how can they get in touch with you?
You can go to our website, which is MELD.community. So, and we'll connect with you. We'll be glad to talk to you.
Yeah, there are links all over our website, which is, as Owen said, MELD.community, to schedule a call with us. And we love connecting with men. We love connecting with people who love men. We love connecting with, partners, and anyone who is interested in this. Everyone is affected. So we love to share about the work, answer questions. If you book a call with us, you will likely end up talking to either me or to Owen. We're right there. So we strongly encourage you to reach out. Or if you're a therapist and you have men that you work with, have them reach out to learn more about how we can help them at MELD.community. We're on Instagram, and
I've
we're on.
spoken to a lot of therapists over the years because they've become, as you were saying, Graham, a great referral source. So I'm glad to, talk to any therapist that would like to speak to us.
Fantastic. Well, hey guys, as we wound down for today, I know you guys have a retreat coming up in February. Would you give us the dates of this and let us know, kind of just in short, what this is going to be about, this retreat?
Absolutely. It's February 27th to March 2nd. So we're hosting a retreat 4 days in Joshua Tree in the winter. It's an excellent opportunity, especially for therapists, to come and get some experiential exposure to our methodology and to, again, learn experientially and see if it's something they want to weave into their practice. And it's a really, really powerful, beautiful, good time. We eat well, we spend time in nature, we go into the park, and we really get to the bottom of a lot of things.
And we do that by teaching this MELD method, which is something that I first realized is a consistent arc of change when we have deep change. And we just broke it down into steps. So as Duncan said earlier, pretty much everything we do is experiential. So we do a little teaching, we do a demo, and then we put you with two other guys. So as a triad, you work on each other, step by step by step. So we've had guys completely off the street. They didn't even know what this was. They were sent by their wives. They didn't even know it was a men's retreat. And by the end of the weekend, they're really adept at doing this work because we taught it step by step by step. And we're teaching something that's really intrinsic in us that we should have learned, but we never got to learn.
I think that teaching allows men to feel now competent and skilled and equipped to come in and do the things that they have the ability to do. It's right inside, like you were saying earlier, Duncan. It's there. We just get to learn how to unlock it and access it. So we're going to put that retreat up on our site along with the other information on this episode today. So thanks for letting us know about that upcoming retreat. Fantastic. Well, your guys' hearts are so easy to feel, and it comes across so very clearly. What a wonderful ministry and program you have. I thank you so much for the work you're doing through MELD and the changes, that you're helping to facilitate in the lives of all of us men. So you guys are awesome. And I so thank you for being on our show today. It's been great to be with you both.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for the work that you're doing.
I'd also like to thank you, our listeners, for dropping by and joining me, Duncan, and Owen today. It's always great to have you with us. Also, we'd love to ask for your help. Would you consider leaving us a review and share this podcast with a friend? By spreading the word, you'll help us grow and reach more people, allowing others to discover the valuable insights shared in each episode. And thank you for being such an important part of the Behavioral Health Today community. Regarding our episode today, I want to remind you that it and its resources and all of our other episodes can be found on our webpage at triadhq.com/BHT. Thanks again for being with us on the show, and we'll look forward to having you back with us next time on Behavioral Health Today.
We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Triad Behavioral Health Network, all rights reserved.